Kia ora everyone, welcome to Politics in Full Sentences. Your thoughtful take on the week's political happenings with a strong lashing of free markets and free minds. Joining with me today is the leader of the ACT Party, David Seymour,
Kia ora.
and Deputy Leader Beth Holbrook. Welcome.
Evening, Ruan.
Now, it's not been an eventful week with too much going on, but one thing that comes to mind is the plastic bags, the ban. There's been all sorts going on. I've seen, went to takeaways 2 days ago, asked for a takeaway bag, and the guy gave me a bag. Same bag, handles cut off.
You gotta be kidding.
I think that's brilliant. That's brilliant of him. And what else would he do? I mean, how many plastic bags are stockpiled in businesses like that? And what else are they to do with them? Dump them?
In my defense, I did reuse it for the rubbish and got rid of rubbish in a responsible way, and it went straight in the bin.
As we all do, we use them over and over again. Mine generally went through a cycle of bringing something home that I'd purchased, and then the next 2 or 3 uses were probably clean uses, like putting vegetables or fruit in, or clean clothing, and then the next use would be say for dirty clothing, and then it would go to dirty shoes and then wet togs before it would finally line the rubbish bin and be thrown out. So I'm going to miss
you
that.
and I are okay. David must be the one that's chucking it all at the
In
beach.
the sea.
Yeah. What's going on, David?
Well, I just got a real simple rule for when you use a plastic bag, you just don't chuck it in the sea.
Yeah.
And I get that, there'll be people watching this saying, well, yeah, but, it's important we start a conversation and make a statement and lead the world and reduce the amount of plastic in the ocean. And I'm all for that. The problem is that what's been done is incredibly stupid because it's not going to reduce the amount of plastic in the ocean. If you want to solve this problem, you'd start with an analysis of, well, where is the plastic in the ocean coming from? Are plastic bags used in New Zealand part of the problem? Well, there's no evidence. The Minister for the Environment produced a report. I'm probably the only person in Parliament that read it because it hasn't been debated anywhere.
Okay.
And it doesn't answer the simple question, how much of the plastic in the ocean comes from New Zealand plastic bags?
Yeah.
And we can see, some people say 93% of plastic in the ocean comes from 10 rivers in Asia and Africa.
I read that article.
Yeah, and I'm like, well, maybe we should try and think about what we can do to stop that rather than inconveniencing and having people chopping the handles off their plastic bags at the Chinese takeaway.
Well, I guess the only thing that it does is makes it a bit harder to tie the rubbish at the end of the when you're throwing it out.
There's also a whole lot of other unintended consequences, and I'll give you an example. I've had 2 requests this week as someone who's involved in council, as an elected representative at local government level. I have had 2 requests this week from communities who would like us now to provide doggy do bags in parks. And the dispensers paid for by ratepayers.
Okay.
Yes, they are plastic. And I'll tell you what else I've been
Paper
thinking.
bags wouldn't be that great, would it?
Well, no, that's not going to work in that situation. But here's something else I've been reflecting on, how long have we been told, please do not print out this email because, we want to save the planet and we need, we don't want to cut down any more trees, so we need to reduce paper. And for how long we've been told that paper is something that we need to conserve because of the energy that goes into producing paper in the trees.
Not to mention the water usage.
And now we have a lot of paper bags in circulation, and look, they don't have many secondary uses, as I've discovered. They don't like getting wet, they don't like getting oily, they don't like getting damp. So I end up with this sort of collection of paper bags coming into my house from various sources, and but that's okay. They're recyclable. So I put them straight in the recycling bin. They get no other use. So I'm a little sceptical about which is the lesser evil environmentally, to be honest.
I've actually got some first-hand experience on that. Working in logistics, we actually export a lot of scrap paper. And I can tell you right now, there's a surplus of scrap paper in the market. In fact, there are plenty of buyers, even scrap companies, that are struggling to move their product. Purely because there is a surplus of it at the moment, and I mentioned the water usage and things like that as well. I don't know. It's actually an interesting debate to have, an interesting research if anyone's done on it, which is more damaging.
Interested.
But I want to go back to what David said about the same article. Correct me if I don't know if I got the numbers exactly right. 93% of the the plastic waste and rubbish that comes from two main rivers in Africa and in India.
Well, I think I think it was 10. But the wider point is that if you have good waste management,
Yeah,
then you can have plastic and not pollute the environment.
it's about responsibility.
Yeah,
And
but
education.
it's partly about just not being a dickhead and littering, because that's just really antisocial. But it's also about having good waste management. So in New Zealand, we have really good waste management. There's lots of different ways, things you can do with your waste: recycle, garbage, landfill, reuse. There's trucks that go around picking stuff up. So we're actually really, really good at managing stuff. There's still some places we could do better.
Yeah. So what's your solution, David? Are you saying we just leave things as status quo? I mean, look, to a certain degree, I agree with the fact that, I was across it with my brother in the UK, who actually said, oh, look, the kids are a little bit more aware of it. They're more aware about the importance of how we treat our rubbish. What's X policy on this?
Oh God, another person saying we're going around and raise awareness. Oh my God. Look, okay, so first of all, we need to actually make environmental policy based on some evidence.
Okay.
And if we're going to give up stuff and inconvenience ourselves, we want to make damn sure that we're going to have some impact. So the best figure that came out of the Environment, or the Ministry for the Environment's report on the plastic bag ban, 0.1% of waste in landfill, 0.1% is plastic bags. So, considering the level of convenience that people have just given up,
Yeah.
was this really the right thing to do? Second of all, it's going in a landfill because we have good waste management.
Yeah.
On the other hand, we got a serious problem out there in the world's oceans, which is overwhelmingly, almost entirely caused by poorer countries that, they've got a lot of priorities. They need to feed themselves. They need better healthcare. They need better education. They're not investing in waste management. They're polluting, and it's harming everybody. So my sort of half-serious policy is every plastic bag should have to have the country's flag on it. Then we'll see where it's all coming from. But my serious policy is, look, we should have kept plastic bags if people want to use them. If people don't want to use them, that's a free choice too. We should have put, say, a 1 cent levy on them. If people
You're introducing taxes, David.
well, yeah. Look, it's user pays, right? And if people want to use them, then that creates a fund. And our Ministry of Foreign Affairs can help countries and poor countries around the world, help people in poor countries that don't have good waste management, to say, hey, look, that river over there that's like you can't even see the water because you've dumped all your plastic in it, we're actually going to help you clean that up. So we could have actually reduced the amount of plastic in the ocean. Instead, what we've got is this nation of, well, half of us, sanctimonious gits running around saying, I wash my bags now. It's like, seriously, another member of parliament was telling me that he goes out and picks up his dog crap in a bag, and then he washes the bag, because he wants to prove that he's better than everyone else at being an environmentalist, and he's not, because plastic bags were never an environmental problem. The case was never made. Yeah, I know.
Can I ask you to name names?
No, I'm not going to say who it was, because the sanctimony is what really gets me. It's all these people running around going, I'm saving the environment because I don't use plastic bags anymore. Really, come on.
Yeah, and look, there are some unintended consequences of this too, because one is it's creating more part-time work for students with a good pair of scissors cutting off the handles. And secondly, look, on a more serious note, we're now forced to move into heavier plastic bags.
Yeah, well, a lot of the substitutes are just another form of plastic, which require many, many, many more uses
to justify its value.
reduce their environmental impact. And I think we're correct to be concerned about unnecessary use of plastic, or what appears to be an unnecessary use of plastic, and we see it a lot in packaging. But another thing we need to consider is what is driving the use of plastic in packaging is red tape. It is requirements around health and safety. It's requirements to prevent breakage and insurance and being sued, and there's the drivers behind a lot of plastic packaging is actually other red tape.
That's
So
interesting.
we need to look at that as well.
I never really looked at it that way. Yeah, you're right. If all of a sudden you buy a carton of or a bag and you're carrying a bottle of wine and it breaks down, is that a liability issue as well?
Well, I'm thinking more, in supermarkets where you're seeing a lot of fresh food packaged. you know, a lot of that is because of health and safety requirement, because of people handling it, and to keep it clean.
Look, when this legislation was passed, David, you mentioned that there was a report done on it, and is there any sort of cost analysis benefit or any scientific evidence that was used in
I just want
this?
to pick up on Beth's point. It's quite possible that the government of New Zealand is actually requiring people to use more plastic they don't want to use than banning people from using plastic they do want to use, which would be a crazy outcome. I don't know, but look, this Ministry for the Environment report, you know, if you're doing serious environmentalism, analysing the evidence, making up choices based on what you actually want to see, making up your mind based on the evidence to get to your objectives. Well, the Ministry for the Environment did an okay report. The one big problem is it didn't tell us how much of the plastic in New Zealand is plastic bags and how much of the plastic litter is plastic bags, or how many New Zealand plastic bags end up in the ocean, whether that's actually a big problem that's worth giving up to solve, worth putting in place this law to solve, and they didn't tell us, what the cost of it is relative to other things we could do if we wanted to give something up for a better environment. But it did present 6 options without any data or figures. And the day the report was released, the Prime Minister announced we're choosing option 1.
Okay.
So I'm guessing that, you know, if you were the Minister for the Environment, Eugenie Sage, or one of the officials that worked away producing that, you'd be pretty annoyed because you're like, I've made the case for 6 different options so people can have a consultation. And then on day 1 of the consultation, the Prime Minister just says, oh yeah, we're picking that one because school children write me letters about it. I mean, seriously. That's like the level of public policy in New Zealand now.
Look, I know you've been quite vocal about the fact that it's all about, I guess, PR stunts, what sells the best in a public media and what creates the best headline. Could that be possibly one of the reasons that as you said, option 1, we're going to ban plastic bags because it just sends the right signal? Yeah,
of course. I mean, it's becoming a signature of Jacinda Ardern and of this government. Is, you know, big, bold gestures. It's the gun ban, and then it's having these big public events with people queuing up. You know, it's getting stuff that's on TV. It's facing up to the Queen and then the Korowai. You know, it's the action such as banning the plastic bag. This government basically
runs. Don't forget the gun buyback, because that's
well, I mentioned that. You know, and it's basically a series of very well scripted PR stunts. But what's the underlying content? What does it work? I'm going to give you another, probably the best example of all. Who could do better PR than have Dave Dobbin singing "Welcome Home" outside the launch of the Kiwi Build project? I mean, the PR is brilliant. The policy is disastrous, and that's becoming a theme.
No, absolutely. Look, I think as far as the presentation's concerned, it's absolutely fantastic. Only if there was a little bit more action plan and thought behind executing it would have been great. You know, good for New Zealand. Now, look, I want to skip that topic and jump on to corporate welfare, which you're big on, and I know this would probably lead on to your tax policy as well, of a flat 17.5% tax rate.
Oh, you stop it.
So, look, I've been out there. I've been talking to a lot of business owners who love the idea, employees who love the idea, and some skeptics. Some say, "Oh, how are you going to do it as a minor party? You're not really bound to any of these. You're not going to do it. You're going to do a Winnie Peters, you know." And look, I'm sorry, I've said that out loud, but that's in terms of following through on this, making it happen.
Well, here's the track record. So, okay, one MP for the last 6 or 7 years. ACT made charter schools happen.
Yeah.
When we introduced charter schools, people said that they weren't necessary, they wouldn't work, blah blah blah. Now, even the Labour Party hasn't closed them. Every single one of them is still operating because they worked too well and they couldn't face the PR that would come from closing them.
That's right. I mean, their own MPs back there.
Yeah.
I mean, some of them actually were out to resign if they ever got rid of it.
Exactly. So, and then the National Party, who resisted them behind the scenes at every opportunity, now charter schools are the best idea they ever had. So one MP did that. We followed through it, followed our principles.
Yeah.
What about end-of-life choice? I mean, I gave up being a minister and the limo and the pay rise and the title and all the
You get a
crap
limo?
well, apparently. I don't know. I never became one, but
That's good on you.
yeah, I've seen them. I gave that up in order to put end-of-life choice bill on the table. So if you were going to bet on a party following through on its values, then I reckon ACT would be a pretty good bet. Yeah. And then people say, oh, but, there's not many of us. Well, let me just say to people that
I think this is your pitch, Beth. If I may
well,
interrupt you, David.
Two would be easier, but I mean, Dave makes a very good point. ACT has punched well above its weight for one MP, and we've made some real difference. And it's interesting, who takes credit for our work afterwards. But I just want to go back to the beginning of the conversation. ACT's about ending corporate welfare, and ending corporate welfare means no corporate welfare.
Because I saw an article today that, it sounds like from, the taxpayers going to be funding the world's richest man, Jeff Bezos, because they want to do a take off a TV series, which the taxpayer could be subsidizing up to $375 million. I mean,
it's an interesting one for me because I assume that is to take place. That filming's probably going to happen in Kumeu Film Studios, which happens to be in my local board area. Okay. So I can already hear what the arguments for that will be. That it's going to provide local jobs, and if we don't let it in, the industry will die and we'll lose all these jobs. I don't know that I agree with that because taking it down to a smaller scale, I'm often as a local board often asked to make community grants. And we're told if we don't give these organisations a grant, well then their event or program will fail and they won't be able to operate anymore. I have found the opposite. I have found we stopped community grants, for example, on my local board. No more. Sorry, we're not doing community grants anymore. No new community grants, and the ones that we've got are on a sinking lid. And it has been, the sky hasn't fallen in for any of those organisations. In fact, they've all picked up sponsorship. And they've been okay. So you have to draw a line, and you say no corporate welfare means no corporate welfare.
Look, especially with a brand like Lord of the Rings, it's synonymous with New Zealand. Surely they've got to come here, and that's part and parcel of.
Well, look, if it's worth investing in, someone will put the money up.
That's right. So
we've just got someone saying that the Labour Party's latest mailer was wrapped in plastic. We can't confirm that, but that's an awesome story.
Yeah, thank you for the feedback.
Well, that'll be good for picking up dog poo, won't it?
That's right. Yeah. You could always wash it.
Well,
you don't have to wash it after it's got a Labour Party.
Apparently,
I've got to be honest with it. I'm actually shocked by that because the effort and the energy and the resource that it takes to wash one of those bags and reuse it. I mean, not only is it probably unhygienic, the amount of water you waste in doing that is not really. I hope it wasn't a green MP, but anyway, look. I want to touch on something that I just read earlier, just before coming into the studio. Actually, this is a little bit concerning. Is that on the gun buyback? I know we've covered this last week, but I want to touch on it again because I understand that there are apparently 3,000 odd firearms that the government would not be that people want to turn in, but the government would not compensate for them because they're actually coming in from illegal owners, i.e., dare I say, some of the gangs.
Well, are we surprised?
I'm a little bit flabbergasted on this. Maybe I'm just I'm very simple-minded. Forgive me if that's the case. But so you're telling me that a gang member that wants to go in and hand in their gun. There's an incentive clearly to disarm some of these guys, but it's not going to go ahead because.
Well, yeah, but look, I mean, the whole thing's just a mess. So here's the dilemma the government faces.
Yeah.
They don't want to pay people for stealing someone else's gun and handling it in.
Okay.
So then they say, well, it has to be a gun you legally own.
Yeah.
The thing is, they're paying so little money, people probably couldn't be bothered stealing them anyway. Then the next thing is, well, if you're worried about getting guns off people, and you've got a choice between getting them off the people who are law-abiding and own them and get their license and go through their vetting and so on, or a choice of getting guns off all the people who are actually really dangerous criminals who probably shouldn't have them.
Yeah.
Which one do you choose? Well, the government's choosing to get the guns off the law-abiding people, leaving
the guns in the
but of
hands
course
of the
they,
law-abiding
but of course,
people.
yeah, but of course they have to do that because if they start paying you for illegal guns, then they're worried that the gangs will go and steal a whole lot of law-abiding people's guns and give them to the government. So, I mean, the whole thing is just a total
shambles.
disaster.
Okay.
Not well
and
thought through.
and I mean, I shouldn't smile. I mean, it's bad on a number of levels. But yeah, what an absolute
Look,
unmitigated screw up by
it
the
is
government.
a bit of a cluster.
Yeah, but it got the PM on CNN, and that's the problem, with this government, is that too much of it is about how can we do a good PR stunt that will get us on TV, not enough about, well, what policies will work to make New Zealanders' lives better.
I mean, look, one thing that really surprises me how emotional people are because you had 120 MPs in Parliament. I'd like to think at least a majority of those people are sane, critically thinking, logical people.
Dreams are free, buddy.
119 to 1, yet
Yeah.
we all agreed to rush this through, didn't really think it through, and now we've got a bit of a cluster of a scenario that I think, I don't know.
But everyone knows that rushed law is bad law and undemocratic law. It's just, frankly, my colleagues didn't have the guts to say so.
Yeah. Look, thanks for David. Thanks for that feedback and the input. I'm a little bit concerned about that. And what else can you do other than hope that some sort of logic or sense prevails and they do something about
It's
it?
always the hope.
It's always the hope. Always the hope. Any final word, Beth? Before we finish up
I had
for the night.
something. There was something that happened today. I was hearing on the news, and you've put me on the spot, and it's gone out of my head.
David.
It'll come up next week. I'll bring it up next week.
All right, David.
It'll come back to me.
Yeah, I don't know if it's going to work on the camera, but check out our new microsite, our campaign for free speech. We've released the Freedom to Speak bill. People are signing up to the campaign so they can keep informed about it. We've just soft launched it today. We've already got over 1,000 people signed up.
Well done.
Without really seriously promoting it. So it shows what a hunger there is for this. People are signing up and sharing it. Telling their friends that, we're basically saying if you believe in free speech, rally together and join this campaign, sign up, and people are doing it. So, it's just, I see it's gone black, but freespeech.act.org.nz, that's freespeech.act.org.nz.
Great.
Go and sign up, yeah.
I'm sure we can put some links on the podcast links here as well to sign up to it.
And I remembered what it was. Insulation. We can talk about it another time.
Insulation. Next week, insulation. We'll talk about it. Thank you, everyone, for joining us. And that was Politics in Full Sentences. We hope you'll tune in next week for New Zealand's most thoughtful political commentary.
Hey, and don't forget to thank Podcasts New Zealand because they have been awesome.
They have absolutely been awesome. Thanks, guys. Thanks, Yershin. Thanks. Thank you to the team here. It's been wonderful.
And thanks, Ruan, for being an awesome host because you thank everyone and no one thanks you.
Thanks, mate. It's good fun. We're getting better every week, and
and people should send us feedback too, because we're just sort of we're new to this.
We're very new to this,
as you can probably tell. Yeah,
that's right.
So, people have been saying more of this content or do this a bit differently, and we're really grateful for that.
We're not professional or qualified broadcasters by any means. What you see is what you get.
We're rapidly improving.
Rapidly improving. Indeed. Thanks, everyone, for tuning in.
All right.
Good night.
Thanks.